All new information enters your brain through one of your 5 senses. You either see it, hear it, touch it, smell it, or taste it. There's simply no other way for information to get into your mind. In practice, you don't really use your sense of taste or smell very much in life unless you are a cook, a chemist, or a perfume salesperson. So to understand the process of learning, we'll be safe in saying that we have 3 main ways to take in information. You see it, you hear it, and or you physically experience it. The new information comes through your eyes, through your ears, or through your sense of touch or feeling. The very best, of course, is for you to take in new ideas using all 3 sensory modalities, and we'll talk about that a little later. The most significant point here is that each person differs greatly in how they best take in new information. Surveys indicate that 35% of the population are mainly visual learners. They are most stimulated to learn by pictures and written words. 25% of people are mainly auditory learners. They prefer to take in new information by conversation and lectures. The other 40% of people are mainly physical learners. They prefer some kind of hands-on experience or active physical involvement in the learning process in order to take in the information. Of course, no one is only one of the 3, visual, auditory, or physical. Each person has a unique combination that they like to use in any learning experience. And you benefit most from learning experiences where all your senses are involved. The unfortunate thing that has happened to us in growing up is that teachers naturally have an unconscious tendency to teach us in the way they prefer to learn themselves. But all too often, the way teachers instinctively teach is not the way that the majority of their pupils like to learn. A teacher whose style was to have the class sit still, face the front, and listen to him or her while he or she talked would appeal only to the auditory type of learner. This type of learner prefers to take in information by listening. But the same teacher would have missed the other 75% of the population who are more physical or visual learners. This mismatch between teaching styles and learning styles is the main problem leading to academic underachievement, frustration, and failure. If the way you are taught does not match the way you like to learn, you'll soon lose confidence in the educational process. You'll begin to doubt your intelligence and ability. You'll become discouraged. This is now happening to the majority of students in our schools. When pupils begin to conclude that they are poor learners, they lose confidence, and then their emotional brains start to feel stress. That stress further reduces the information reaching their thinking brains, and the vicious circle has started. This is not just a theory, by the way. Statistics show that 4 out of 5 children at age 6 are confident in their ability to learn. As young children, they've been exploring the world with all their senses, usually in a very trusting and supportive environment. Then they went to school and the rules of learning changed. They were asked to sit still. They were discouraged from exploring and were lectured to more often. Fewer of their senses were involved in the learning processes, and fewer of their multiple intelligences were engaged. The learning experience became less fun, and there was less of a personal relationship with the teacher. By the age of 16, only 1 teenager in 5 is still confident of their ability to learn. Most of the others have tuned out and turned off. They look forward to those golden days when they'll be out of school and no longer subjected to these awful, boring learning experiences. Sometimes a student will do well in one subject in one class and then do poorly in another. Almost invariably, this is caused by a mismatch between teaching styles and learning styles. It has very little to do with the child. There are countless examples of children who have changed teachers or changed schools, and their academic accomplishments have zoomed into the straight A category. And what we know now is that this is probably possible for everyone. As an adult, you can't normally influence how information is given to you, but you can choose how you will adapt that information so that you take it in a way that is suitable to your particular learning preferences. In the workbook, there's a test that you can take to determine your particular sensory preference, whether you are visual, auditory, or physical. You probably have a good idea of what kind of a learner you are already, but the test will make it more clear and distinct for you. An important principle in learning is to build on your strengths. As the saying goes, the very best direction to ride a horse is in the direction that it is already heading. The very best direction to develop your talents and abilities is in the direction in which they are already going. Your job is not to try to be different from who you are, but to be the very best person you can possibly be, given your unique set of talents, abilities, and preferences. If you're a visual learner, you would like to see things, to read things, to explore graphs and diagrams, and to write out notes, words, and pictures of the information that you're exploring. When you hear an interesting concept or idea, you immediately want to see it in writing in some form. If you're an auditory learner, you very much enjoy asking questions and listening to people. You'll prefer to learn from audio cassettes and lectures. You'll have an extremely well-developed ability to take in and remember information that you have heard. If you're a physical learner, you need to get your hands on something to try it out. You want to practice a new skill or ability as soon as you learn about it. You don't learn well from instruction, but you would rather be walked through it physically so that you can do every step of the procedure yourself. The key to learning is to find out what works best for you, and then to be sure that the new information that you're getting is tailored in such a way that it suits your learning preference. However, the chief goal of this session, and one of the main goals of this entire program, is for you to become a multi-sensory learner. It is for you to bombard your mind from all directions with the same information presented in a variety of ways so that you absorb it faster and apply it sooner than you would if you were restricted to learning through only one of the visual, auditory, or physical modalities. In multisensory learning, if you read and then visualize the material, you have seen it. If you make up questions and answer them aloud, you have heard it. If you write out the answers to your questions and circle the major points, you will have done it physically. Your job is to take a book, a lecture, or a training demonstration of any kind and do something extra that helps you to learn it in the way that suits you best. Multisensory learners deliberately engage all their senses as they learn. And here's an interesting point. You have a separate memory for what you see, what you hear, and what you do. If you activate all three memories simultaneously with a new piece of information, your likelihood of remembering and applying that information goes up by several hundred percentage points. Abraham Maslow, the psychologist, once watched his grandson playing with a hammer that he had received for Christmas. He made the observation that when all you have is a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail. The subject of this session is getting the facts, or taking in new information. Most people only learn with one or two techniques, and their ability to take in new information is dramatically limited. Their whole world looks like a nail. But when you learn and apply a variety of techniques, it'll open your whole brain so that information will flood into your mind in a variety of different ways. Every technique and method we teach in this program is designed to give you yet another way to activate a different part of your brain and your intelligences so that you accelerate the speed at which you learn. And of course, the faster you learn, the faster you will learn in the future. The starting point of getting the facts in a way that is most conducive to rapid learning is for you to get the big picture first. Ask for or create a general outline of the material before you begin learning it piece by piece. One of the most important questions you can ask when approaching any new learning experience is this: what specifically will I be able to do differently as a result of what I learn in this course? The more clearly defined your learning objectives for any piece of material, the more likely it is that you will learn on purpose. By starting with the goal in mind, by being clear about where you are and where you want to end up at the end of the learning experience, you will be far more alert and aware of the ideas and information in the material that can help you to achieve that goal. When I'm doing training sessions, I sometimes begin by asking the audience, "Why are you here?" This question is almost always followed by a deafening silence. Everyone just sits there in wonderment. No one has ever asked them this question before. They look at me as though I'm supposed to know why they are there and what they're supposed to learn. So I wait quietly for a few seconds, even a minute or so, until someone from the audience tentatively answers the question. I then write the answer down and ask, "What is it that you want and need to learn from this course in order to do your jobs better?" And then I wait again. Soon the answers begin to come from the audience, faster and faster. In no time at all, I will have written down 10, 20, or 30 answers. I will then review the answers with the audience and ask them to raise their hands if they consider a particular objective to be more important than another. This entire exercise takes about 5 minutes, but at the end of it, the entire audience is fully engaged in the seminar that's about to begin. In a smaller and more limited way, you should do this prior to reading any book or article, listening to any audio tape, or taking any course of instruction. The more reasons you have for wanting to learn a subject, the more focused and directed you will be throughout the learning experience, and of course, the more and faster you will learn and retain. Visualization is a very powerful learning tool. If you can create a visual image of how you will be when you are fluent with this new information, this visual image will increase your learning ability and your memory. The more often you imagine yourself exactly as you would be as a master of this particular subject, the more motivated you will be to learn it. At the very least, ask the instructor, "What do you want me to know or to be able to do after this session?" What are his or her objectives for you? What does he or she feel that you should learn as a result of what he or she is about to teach? Another way to get the big picture in any learning experience is for you to browse through the material from front to back, reading all the major headings and subheadings. Look at the way the material is laid out, the graphs or diagrams that have been chosen to illustrate the material, and the chapter titles and subtitles. Read the biography of the writer or the instructor and the background or objectives for the course, book, or program. This will often trigger your interest and activate your mind so that the subject is much more alive for you. It will also begin engaging your 3 sensory preferences and make it easier for you to learn. Once you get the big picture, take a few moments to write out the key points about what you already know of the subject. Put these points under 2 categories. The first is sentence completion. Take the sentence, "What I already know about this subject is," and then complete the sentence with as many points as possible. Then write the heading, "These are the areas I need to find out more about," and write down as many ways to complete that sentence as possible. This is a good place for you to use a learning map, which I'll explain in a few minutes. The next stage in multisensory learning is to break the learning task down into small steps. The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "A journey of 1,000 leagues begins with a single step." This is true for learning as well. Complete fluency in a language or mastery of a subject begins with your learning the first new word or fact. However huge a learning task may initially appear, you can defeat it with a simple step-by-step plan. Learning proceeds along a continuum, like taking a journey from point A to point B. You learn a subject gradually, bit by bit. There's no particular point between when you don't know the subject and when you do, when you are uneducated in a subject and when you are fully educated in a subject. Everything is a matter of small degrees. When I was traveling in foreign countries, I developed a simple system for learning the basic languages. I started by learning the pronunciations of the various sounds and vowels and syllables, and then followed that by the basic salutations and greetings, the numbers, the days of the week, and the basic questions. I found that I could learn all of these in 4 to 5 hours of intense study with a language book. From that point on, I would go out into the street and use the little bit of language that I had. With each additional study session, I would build on my existing language base. In no time at all, I was getting along fairly well, and in various languages. However, from the minute that I learned and practiced the first few words, I was speaking the language. I had embarked on the journey. I was putting one foot in front of the other on the road toward fluency. And this is the same for you with any subject. The important thing to remember is that when you are learning something complex and challenging, like learning a computer, you don't automatically have to start at the very beginning. You can roam around the subject and get started on something that engages your interest. The most important thing is to take a bit of the information and just begin. Einstein was a poor student. He could not speak until he was 4, and he couldn't read until he was 7. His teachers felt that he had learning disabilities and that he could never be properly educated. But something sparked his interest in physics at a young age. It was a favorite toy, a magnet. He became very interested in what forces caused the magnet to attract metal. So he started to think and wonder, and he began to brush up on his mathematics. He learned little by little. Geniuses are more made than born. Einstein's brain now sits in a glass jar in Kansas City. Small parts of it have been studied by brain researchers over the years. It is no bigger than average, but researchers say that it has one difference from most brains. It shows evidence of very rich connections between the brain cells. In fact, every time you experience something new or think in a new way, you make more connections between your brain cells, between your neurons and dendrites. The more connections you make, the more brain capacity you build at virtually any age. In a very real sense, every small step in learning in any subject makes you more intelligent. You develop your own brain capacity by continuing to use it by learning facts one by one. An excellent way for you to keep a high level of interest and to intensify your concentration on any subject is to ask lots of questions. Remember, all knowledge is merely answers to questions. The more questions you have, the more curious you become, the more intelligent you are. In fact, one of the hallmarks of the intelligent person is that they are continually asking all kinds of questions about particular subjects. I worked with a very wealthy man some years ago who built a great fortune in a variety of businesses and industries. I spent many hours watching his interactions with his various business associates. He was low-keyed, but he had an insatiable curiosity. He never stopped asking questions about a particular business or venture. By the time he actually made a commitment to going ahead with a business idea, he was more thoroughly knowledgeable about that business than almost anyone else in the industry. So write down as many questions as you can think about a subject on a separate piece of paper. As you read the material or listen to the instructor, jot down additional questions. The more questions you have, the more alert and aware you will be, and the more of your brain will be activated in the learning process. Learning new material while you are looking for the answers to questions keeps you learning on purpose and accelerates your learning speed. It helps you to concentrate and focus better on new information. One of the greatest breakthroughs in rapid learning in this century has been the discovery and development of the concept called mind mapping, or what we refer to as learning maps. This breakthrough was triggered by the realization that we see and experience our worlds holistically, taking in a variety of sights, sounds, emotions, smells, and other sensory experiences simultaneously. And this is the same way that our brain functions, with one sensory experience triggering an entire series of brain cells responsible for the functions relating to that particular experience. In studying a subject, you use a learning map by starting with the theme or subject in a circle in the center of the page, and then drawing sub-branches that stand for the sub-themes of what you are learning. You can make your learning map more memorable by using different colored pens or pencils for various branches or words or themes. Some people recommend that you use a highlighter and that you use different colors to surround each branch with even different colors to surround each sub-branch. The use of pictures and symbols like stick figures, question marks, stars, little houses, cars, and so on are also useful for making your learning map more vivid and memorable and activating more centers of your brain. With a little practice, you can first of all summarize each chapter of a book in a learning map. Later, you'll be able to summarize an entire book in a learning map. Learning maps have many advantages. Because they are laid out on a single page of paper, with branches flowing out in all directions from the central theme, they present ideas in a visual form. The information is presented clearly and concisely, like a snapshot, and only the core ideas or key words are used on the various branches. Because a learning map is visual, it's easier to picture later in your mind, and it therefore helps to make learning more memorable and easier. Many learners find that they can take in information all at once when it's presented in a learning map. Learning maps are fast to produce, easy to read, and easy to remember. The essential rule when making a learning map is to only use keywords whenever possible. Keywords are the essential words that when you read them remind you of the whole idea. These are the words that get to the heart of the meaning. The keywords that you use on a learning map are usually nouns, because since nouns are names of things, they're easy to remember. There are examples of learning maps in your workbook that you should review and work with. It's a new technique for you to learn, and it requires some practice, but once you get the hang of it, you will be astonished at how much it helps you to learn more effectively. You can use learning maps for a variety of different mental representation activities. One exercise I use in my classes is to have people do a learning map for their lives. They draw a circle in the middle of the paper and write in their names. Then they make a series of branches that represent the major parts of their lives, their families, their work, their finances, their business activities, their community activities, their sports, their education, and so on. Off of each of these main lines, they create smaller branches that represent sub-themes. For example, on the family branch, there would be smaller branches for each member of the family, plus the home, car, vacations, problems, time spent, plans for the future, financial situation, and so on. Each member of the family as a sub-branch could have sub-branches as well. You can actually create a one-page visual description of your entire life and get a much better idea of how the various parts of your life relate to each other by putting them onto a learning map. You can use a learning map to sketch out a personal development plan, a personal financial plan, a sales strategy plan, a business organization plan, an itinerary for a trip or vacation, and even a plan for your life as you would like to create it some years from now. The entire process of creating and adding to learning maps is both exciting and enjoyable, and it dramatically increases the effective function of your brain and your intelligences. There are a series of additional techniques that you can use to increase the speed at which you get the facts and take in new ideas. First, you can tick off a sentence or paragraph as you read it and understand it. At the end of a page, you can put a tick mark in the upper corner to indicate to your brain that you have fully grasped the content on that page. Take the time to read and reread a difficult passage if you don't get it the first time. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by a whole chapter of a textbook or instruction manual, you should concentrate on understanding one small chunk at a time. In time, you'll understand more and more, faster and faster. Even people who have learned the most complex subjects or languages start with the simple basics and work up one step at a time. Second, use a highlighter pen when you are reading and studying. This is why it is so important for you to buy your own books rather than borrowing them. You want to be able to mark them up thoroughly. If you've properly underlined and highlighted, when you look back on the material in a day, a month, or even a year later, you'll be able to pick out all the important bits of new information in a few minutes. The key is to only underline or highlight the new information or new ways of looking at old information rather than highlighting an entire paragraph or every word in a line. Each time you go over a piece of material, use a different highlighter pen so that eventually the material looks like a splash of color. The use of different colors, markings, underlinings, and highlightings, accompanied by stars, question marks, arrows, and exclamation points in the margins, dramatically increases the quantity of what you learn and remember. Third, read it dramatically. This stimulates your auditory and kinesthetic senses. You remember what's dramatic. Sounds can be dramatic if you read the material as though you are acting on a major stage in front of 1,000 people and you're trying to impress them with the power of the words. You can even use a foreign accent to make the material more memorable. Or you can try whispering it to yourself. You often whisper things that are important. In every case, you send a signal to your subconscious mind that this is important material that you want to both remember and recall later. Reading this dramatically is a great tool for auditory learners, and it increases your ability to use your auditory learning modality even if you are a visual or physical learner. Fourth, summarize the material out loud. You tend to remember twice as much of what you say aloud rather than what you merely read to yourself. So stop regularly and summarize out loud what you have read in your own words. Forcing yourself to paraphrase the material increases the speed at which you grasp the material and make it your own. The fifth way to engage in multisensory learning is to sit quietly and visualize the material that you have just seen, read, or heard. Go over it in your mind's eye and make a mental movie of it, like an instant replay in a sports program. It helps to store the information in your visual memory. A powerful learning tool is for you to run over something important that you learned during the day just before you fall asleep. This transfers the material to your long-term memory and allows your subconscious mind to file it away during the night. The sixth way for you to engage your multisensory learning modalities is to walk around while you read or listen. We all have preferences for physical learning to some degree, and you can often learn more by moving around while you're taking in the information. Many of my students listen to my audio cassettes when they are walking, running, or exercising, and they learn the material extremely well because they have their physical senses fully activated while they're taking in the information through earphones. In any case, regular breaks are extremely helpful for accelerated learning. Get up and move every 25 to 30 minutes. While you're sitting, doodle, underline in color, jot down notes, and make learning maps. By forcing yourself to make learning maps to illustrate what the instructor is saying or what you're reading, you'll be a far more active learner than if you merely sat and took it in passively. The seventh way to utilize more of your sensory modalities is to write key ideas on Post-it notes or postcards. These Post-it notes come in various sizes, and you can write out the key ideas and then lay them out on a larger piece of paper or card in front of you. You can then move the various notes around so that they take different positions in relation to each other. It's absolutely amazing how much more rapidly you will learn ideas when you shift Post-it notes around so that they are in a sequence that makes better sense to you. This activity allows you to sort out the information physically and to see it visually. As you read the Post-it notes, you say the words to yourself at the same time. All your sensory modalities are engaged with this exercise. Index cards work equally well. They are tremendous helps in learning key concepts or in memorizing words of a foreign language. An eighth way is note-making rather than note-taking. When you make notes, you write down the things that you are thinking, and you write them in your own words. When you take notes, you simply duplicate what the book is saying or what the instructor is teaching. The more you think in terms of paraphrasing what you are learning in your own words, the more concentration is required of you. And the more you concentrate, the more of your brain cells you activate, and the smarter you become. The smarter you become, the more and better you learn, and the faster and easier you memorize. The ninth way to accelerate learning is just to stop and go for a walk. Let the information soak into your mind. Very often your thinking processes are like pouring water onto the hard ground. If you pour too much water, the water will simply pool. But if you wait for a little while, the water will soak in, and you can pour more water on it. Taking in new information is very much the same. You need a period of absorption after you've learned a series of new ideas. Getting yourself and your mind busy elsewhere for a while after a learning session allows the new information to soak into your mind and become more available to you later. It's a very good idea to review your notes from a learning session just a few minutes before you go to sleep. Again, this allows your subconscious mind to absorb and to file the information away during the night. The 10th key to multisensory learning is as important as anything else you will ever discover. It is the importance of the buddy system of learning. This is where you get a learning partner for a particular subject. You will always learn far more and far faster if you are learning in conjunction with someone else. With a learning partner, you discuss some of the things that we have gone over earlier in this session. You ask and answer for each other questions like, why are we taking this course? What is it that we want to learn? What is it that we already know? What will we be able to do if we really master this material? What are the most important things we need to know given our current situation? If you discuss these subjects in advance, you will have a basis for an ongoing conversation during the learning experience. After each session, you can test each other by asking questions like, what was the most important thing you just learned? Why do you feel that that was more important than something else? What was the least important thing that you just learned? How could this learning experience be improved? And what do we want to learn next time? Socrates once said that we only learn a subject by dialoguing about it. The more you can discuss, debate, argue, and defend your ideas and your position on a subject with someone else, the faster and deeper you learn the material, and the more permanently you retain it for use in the future. Most people are in the situation of being in a room where they open only one window to let in air or light, and sometimes they don't even open that window very much. By practicing these various techniques for getting facts and taking in new ideas, you put yourself in the position of going around and opening up all the windows into a room, allowing the room to be flooded with the sunshine and air of new ideas and concepts. You dramatically increase the likelihood that you will learn and retain what you are taking in. You double and triple your learning speed by deliberately choosing to structure your learning experience in such a way that you get the very most out of it. You are already beginning to realize that you are far smarter than perhaps you ever appreciated before. In fact, you are a potential genius. All you need to do to function at exceptional levels is to unlock more of your innate ability. No test or measure of your intelligence or academic accomplishments in the past has been an accurate assessment of what you are capable of doing in the future. Your past is not your potential. Your future can be unlimited, especially in the area of learning new knowledge and skills, and depending, of course, upon your level of belief and determination. And the wonderful thing is that the more of your brain you use, the more of your brain becomes available to you. As you become smarter in any one subject, you become smarter in other subjects as well. When you learn one language, you'll find it even easier to learn a second and a third language. As you develop a skill in any area, you will find it easier and easier to develop ever more complex details and skills in that particular area. As you stimulate and activate more of your mental neurons and dendrites, you develop a richer and more complex brain, and you become more and more intelligent as time passes. And the more you use these techniques, especially the exciting technique of learning naps, the more, faster, and better you will learn and advance in everything you do. The most successful coaches in sports, especially basketball and football, are not those who have a team made up of extraordinary players that they then shepherd to championships. The very best coaches are those who take an average group of players with good attitudes and shape them into a championship team. It's the same with your latent talents, abilities, preferred learning modalities, and especially your various forms of intelligence. I said in Session 2 that you are a genius. What this simply means is that when you combine your special intelligences and use them to focus on learning the things you need to learn, you will immediately move to exceptional levels of intellectual functioning. You will think better and more creatively. You will solve problems faster and make better decisions. You will learn new subjects and how to apply them much quicker. You will increase your value as an employee and as the president of your own personal services corporation. You will put yourself on the leading edge of change in our society. You will assure a greater future for yourself and your family. And this will happen because you use the natural intelligences that you already have, not because you develop something new or different. I call this the Schwarzenegger effect. Arnold Schwarzenegger has won several bodybuilding contests, including Mr. Olympia, Mr. Universe, and Mr. America, and some of them several times. He makes many millions of dollars a year for each movie, and he lives a wonderful life. His start was as the result of his muscles and his physical appearance. But here's a question. Does Arnold Schwarzenegger have a single muscle in his body that is more or different than any other man? And the answer is no. Arnold Schwarzenegger has the same 610 muscles as any other male. The only difference is that Arnold Schwarzenegger developed his muscles through many hours of training every day for many years. We all know that achievement of any kind, including bodybuilding, is the result of an extended process of hard work. But if you do the work, you will get the results. By the same token, if you develop your mental muscles and abilities, you'll get extraordinary results from your life as well. And you'll accomplish these results far faster than you would if you set out to be a competitive bodybuilder. When you deliberately use your range of intelligences, you exercise your brain. Like your muscles, your brain power literally does grow with use. That's why intelligence is not fixed. You are an important influence on the development of your own brain and how smart you really are. Learning is not something that is done to you. Only you can do it. The best any teacher can do is to provide the atmosphere and materials that encourage you to want to explore and learn and help you to overcome difficulties. The actual business of learning is entirely your responsibility. You must keep saying to yourself, if it's to be, it's up to me. You are 100% responsible for who you are and for everything that happens to you. The more you accept this responsibility and all that it implies, the more you will take full control over the realization of your individual potential. Once you've taken in information using the principles we taught in the previous session, you then have to turn those facts into knowledge. For true learning to take place, you have to do something. Turning the facts you've acquired into knowledge that you really understand and can use is the job of the third stage of learning, which is called exploring the subject. You now need to deepen your understanding of the subject by exploring it in one or more ways that suit your unique combination of intelligences. When you do, you'll be using your full range of mental powers. This is whole brain accelerated learning. This is how you convert theoretical data into useful, personal, practical knowledge. This section is the critical link that makes accelerated learning available to you for the rest of your life. It contains a lot of new ideas for you to try. So take these coming ideas bit by bit. Listen to them, review them in the workbook, and try them out whenever you get a chance. Remember, if you thoroughly learned one new idea per month, within a year you'd be in the top 1% of learners in the world. The breakthrough work by Dr. Howard Gardner and his colleagues at Harvard University has demonstrated that when you put your range of intelligences to good use, you greatly increase your learning ability. Each type of intelligence that you have represents a different way to explore the subject. It represents a different ability that you can call on to tackle the problem. This new way of looking at intelligence tells us three critically important things. First, as we said before, intelligence is not fixed. A person can be excellent in one situation and appear to be highly intelligent, yet he may be a complete lost in a different situation. A person who may be a brilliant manager at work may be completely unable to set the clock on a VCR at home. An absent-minded professor may be brilliant in his subject, but unable to find his car in the parking lot. Second, intelligence is not IQ as much as it is a set of abilities and skills. You can develop and improve your intelligence by learning to use your abilities to the full. The purpose of this program is to give you the necessary tools and techniques to develop these skills. Intelligence is demonstrated by what you do and achieve. When you become a good doer, you demonstrate your intelligence. Imagine a brilliant Harvard graduate with a PhD in nuclear physics driving on a lonely stretch of road when his car breaks down and stops. There's virtually no traffic on the empty road. After about an hour, an old pickup comes along with a young fellow with a limited education driving. He stops the car and asks if the professor is having problems. When he learns that the car is broken down, he lifts up the hood, checks out a few things, jiggles a few wires, makes a couple of adjustments, and then tells the professor to give it a try. The professor puts his key in the ignition and the car comes to life and is ready to go again. Now here's the question. Which of the two is most intelligent? And your answer has to be, it depends. It depends on the situation. It depends upon the intelligence that is required at the particular time. With regard to fixing the car, the Harvard-educated professor is quite stupid. When it comes to nuclear physics, the young man driving the pickup has no knowledge at all. Yet, it is possible for each of them to be excellent in their own areas, depending on what they do with the intelligences that they have. The third critically important finding that comes from the work of Dr. Howard Gardner of Harvard is that you need to work to use, develop, and improve your intelligence. It cannot and will not happen without effort on your part. Consciously using your full range of intelligences, like developing all the members of your team, leads to balanced learning. This is learning that not only suits your current strengths, but which also enables you to develop and grow as a person. Dr. Viktor Frankl, the founder of logotherapy, once said that you could divide work into 4 categories based on how the work appeared to you. The first type of work he described consisted of tasks that were hard to learn and hard to do. These are obviously not the right tasks or the right jobs for you. The second type of tasks are the jobs that are hard to learn but easy to do. This might be something like driving a car or typing with a typewriter. It's hard to learn initially, but once you know how, you can do it without much thought. This type of work will never be sufficient to challenge your full range of abilities. The third type of work are things that are easy to learn but hard to do, like digging a ditch or chopping wood. You can learn how to do them in a few minutes, but they are hard to do and they will never become any easier. These are also areas where you will never accomplish very much in life. The fourth category of activities are things that are easy to learn and easy to do. In fact, they are so easy to learn that you even forgot how you learned them, and when you do them, you seem to have a natural facility for them. This last category is where your dominant strengths, abilities, and intelligences lie. You need to look back over your life and ask yourself, what are the things that I have done that have been the most easy for me to learn and the most easy to do? And you must also ask, what sort of things come easily to me that seem to be difficult for most other people? In the workbook, you will find a set of exercises that you can take to determine your dominant intelligences. These will probably not come as a surprise to you, but they will help you to understand why it is that you are so much better in some areas than you are in others. The results of this test and what we will talk about in this session will help you to maximize your dominant intelligences and build up your other intelligences so that you can get far more out of yourself. By answering these questions, you will immediately see that there are clusters of activities that you are ideally suited to do by temperament and talent, and all of your success in life will come from developing and exploiting your talents along those lines. As you know from before, you have 7 basic intelligences. You have every one of these to a greater or lesser degree, but you tend to be dominant in at least one. A starting point of determining your strengths is to listen to some of the characteristics that describe people who are strong in each intelligence and see if they apply to you. Remember, intelligences are a little bit like horoscopes. Everybody has a few of the qualities described in every astrological sign. You will have one or more of the qualities described in each of the various intelligences. Your job is to listen for the intelligence that seems to describe you more vividly than the others. The first type of intelligence is verbal linguistic. If this is your dominant intelligence, you will appreciate plays, poetry, books, radio talk shows, conversation, and especially language, both your own and that of others. You will find that you learn well from books, tapes, lectures, and listening to others. You will be a fluent, expressive talker with a well-developed vocabulary. You'll be good at explaining things to others, and you will like to write things down so that you can put them into your own words. Now, how well do these characteristics describe you? The second intelligence that you might have is mathematical logical. If you have this intelligence, you will be the kind of person who likes to solve puzzles and problems. You like and you even insist on logical explanations for things that are going on around you. You are very impatient with something that does not seem logical. You arrange your tasks in a sensible, orderly sequence. You have a very neat working environment. You look for patterns and relationships between things. You believe very strongly in direct cause-effect relationships among the things going on around you. And finally, if you have a mathematical, logical form of intelligence, you will approach tasks and problems in a logical, step-by-step manner. How does this intelligence apply to you? If your visual spatial intelligence is dominant in your way of exploring new information, you will find that you have a good sense of direction. You will be observant and will see things that others don't notice. You will be highly visual and you will see things clearly in your mind's eye. For example, you can recall your living room or kitchen in complete detail. You will enjoy learning with films, slides, and videotapes. You will also use charts, diagrams, and maps easily. In fact, when I explained the use of learning maps in the last session, you were probably strongly attracted to that as a way of taking in and processing new information. If your dominant intelligence is musical, you'll enjoy natural sounds like ocean waves or birds singing. You'll be interested in music and will probably be a collector. You'll enjoy hearing and/or making music. You may even play a musical instrument. You will have a good sense of rhythm and melody and will very much enjoy an excellent musical performance. You will also have a ready facility to learn and retain lyrics from songs. In fact, music will be a major part of your life. You will either have or want to have an outstanding stereo system and a complete collection of CDs, digital tapes, and other forms of music for your house. If your dominant intelligence is interpersonal, you will be excellent at helping with difficulties between people. You will be a good mediator, moderator, and negotiator. You will be highly sensitive to the moods of others and their reactions and will instinctively know how people feel and why they're acting in a particular way. You will be very interested in how others think and feel, and you will ask people a lot of questions about their inner lives. You will be involved in clubs and community activities. You enjoy working together with other people to get things done. Finally, you will very much enjoy teamwork and discussing and cooperating with others, both at work and in your private life. You will consider yourself to be a real people person. This is one of the most important and valuable intelligences of all in terms of working effectively with others to get things done. If you are dominant in intrapersonal intelligence, you will be the kind of person who likes to daydream, imagine, and fantasize about things you would like to do and places you would like to go. You'll enjoy doing things independently of others. You may be intensely individualistic. You'll appreciate privacy and quiet for working and thinking. You like to work by yourself in a quiet, structured environment. You have an in-depth understanding of your own feelings and thoughts and why you do the things you do. You can quite easily explain your decisions and actions to others. And finally, you give a lot of thought to the relevance of what you are doing and learning. You think about ideas and concepts. You're extremely goal-oriented and are continually thinking about where you want to go with your life and how you want to get there. The final form of intelligence is bodily physical intelligence. If this is your dominant intelligence, you will like to deal with problems physically and get directly involved. You will want hands-on experience with things that you are learning and doing. You'll be skillful when working with things. You'll have a natural mechanical ability. You'll be able to take things apart, figure out how they work, and put them back together again. You'll enjoy sports, games, and physical exercise. You like to be moving, doing, or touching something that you are learning about. You don't like to sit still for very long. And finally, you remember best what you have actually done with your hands and with your mind rather than what you have seen or heard from sitting in a class or lecture. As you listen to these descriptions, you will find that you score higher in some and lower than others. But there are no wrong answers. Your intelligence is like a building with 7 doors, all of which lead to the central corridor. There is no right or wrong way to get there. There is only the way that is best for you. As it happens, our schools and training facilities typically teach in such a way that they involve only the linguistic and the mathematical logical intelligence. So if your brain is naturally set up to be good with words and figures, you'll probably do well in formal education. In fact, the most important test for admission to college is the Scholastic Achievement Test, which measures mathematical and verbal skills to the exclusion of all others. If you like a teaching style that reveals the subject bit by bit in a logical, step-by-step manner, you will like the way most textbooks and lectures are put together. If your brain doesn't happen to work that way, school might have been a tough experience for you because it mostly offered what is called a single chance to learn and understand the material. This is what Howard Gardner calls the single chance theory of education. Either you get it or you don't get it, and if you don't, it's too bad for you. What about the people who prefer and often need other ways to explore the subject? The fact is that they are not well served by the way information is normally presented at school, so they achieve far less than they could. Yet, if you give people the opportunity to use those different intelligences in different ways, they can blossom and literally become geniuses in their fields. This multiple intelligence theory is also called the multiple chance theory of education, and it's what this program on accelerated learning is all about. By learning how to use more of your intelligences, you dramatically increase your likelihood of learning the things you need to learn effectively and well. You have several chances to learn and excel rather than just one. You should use your strongest form of intelligence to explore what you are learning. You can use this natural facility of yours to bring what otherwise might be theoretical or abstract ideas to life. This will enable you to create deep rather than surface learning, but you should try to use all 7 intelligences. A powerful way to learn is to use as many of your intelligences as possible. This way you experience what you are learning in a well-rounded way, and you dramatically increase the speed at which you internalize the new information. Imagine something as common as learning to drive. Here are ways that you could use each of your different intelligences to learn this skill. If you are verbal linguistic, you could read up and study the test and everything else you need to know about driving. If you are mathematical logical, you could use this intelligence to work out braking distances and turning radiuses for traveling and parking. If you are visual spatial, you could use this intelligence to visualize maneuvering into a parking space or passing a car in traffic. If you had musical intelligence, you could put some key facts into a poem or jingle so that you could memorize them for the driving test. If your dominant intelligence was interpersonal, you would ask advice from the instructor and listen closely as he or she tells you what to do to drive better. If your dominant intelligence is intrapersonal, you would set a goal to learn to drive well, encourage yourself, and talk yourself through the process of learning to drive. Finally, if your dominant intelligence was bodily physical, you would learn to drive by practicing the skill of driving over and over again until you got it just right. As you can see, with perhaps the exception of using your musical intelligences to create a rhyme or jingle, you do use all of your intelligences in something as simple as learning to drive. I'm going to introduce you now to 7 valuable learning tools or activities, one for each of the 7 intelligences. We call them activities because their function is to get you to actively explore your learning. Remember, active exploration of the subject in different ways is the secret of a rapid, effective learning. Facts only turn into knowledge when you think about them in a way that gets your brain actively involved. Let's say that you want to learn a new subject, get a professional degree in your field, learn a language, or become far more knowledgeable about sales or management. To actively use your linguistic intelligence, you could take the new information and put it into your own words, paraphrase it. You could write it down and make notes of what you consider to be the important parts. To develop your mathematical logical intelligence, you could list the main points in a logical sequence and then number them. You might even create a graph or a chart to illustrate the points. To develop your visual spatial intelligence, you could create a learning map with the central theme of the subject you are studying in the center and branches out to all sides with the sub-themes and the different points coming off the branches. To activate your musical intelligence, you could create a song, poem, or jingle to summarize what you are learning. To develop your interpersonal intelligence, discuss what you are learning with someone else and listen carefully to their reactions. To develop your intrapersonal intelligence, think and reflect on why the subject matters to you. Why do you care about it at all? Why do you want to learn it? How will it affect your life? And to activate your bodily physical intelligence, act it out or model the information in some way. Some of these ways to explore the subject will seem comfortable for you. Others might seem odd or a little bit unusual. But it is only when you move out of your comfort zone that you grow as a person and grow intellectually. Now let's look at how we can develop some of these intelligences to a greater depth. Starting in a different order, with mathematical logical exploration of a subject, list the key points of what you are doing in a logical numbered sequence. Selecting the important points of the subject means that you need to think carefully about what you are learning. If your understanding is fuzzy, this will become immediately obvious. This is an excellent way to make sure that you really come to grips with the new topic. When you analyze what you are learning, you examine it in detail. You look for the essential parts of it. You don't take it at face value. You explore it in depth. And that's effective learning. To think analytically about your subject requires that you ask 5 questions about the subject on a regular basis. Question number 1 is, what assumptions are being made here? What are the explicit assumptions and the implicit assumptions? Are these assumptions true? Question number 2, what is the evidence for this? Is this a fact or opinion? If it's opinion, can you trust the source? If it's a fact, is it always true? The third type of question you might ask is, can I think of a good illustration or example of this? Does this fit into any other category or class of things that you're familiar with? Question number 4 is, what opinions or conclusions can I draw about this? Are these opinions or conclusions justified by the material? And question number 5, what are the unique points in this? What are the key points and the new points? This type of questioning process makes sure that you always stop and think about what you are learning. One of the biggest faults of thinking is that we jump to conclusions by accepting our first reaction or thought in any situation. But initial conclusions may not always be right. You can actually become more intelligent by taking a little bit more time to analyze the incoming material before you make a decision. Next, you can use linguistic exploration to develop and expand your intelligence by putting things into your own words. This requires that you really understand the material. One way to do this is to brainstorm all the things you feel you have learned on the subject. Simply write down or speak into a tape recorder everything you can think of. Then, skim through the pages of the book to jog your memory and to add further thoughts. Be sure to put these things into your own words rather than copying out or merely repeating chunks of the text. You will now have a list of points from the new information. You can then organize these points in a way that is meaningful to you. For example, you can write out what you consider to be the 5 most important points and then put them on index cards. Another way you can explore a subject using your linguistic intelligence is to imagine that you are either writing a letter to a friend or telling a friend about the subject you are studying. Imagine that the friend knows very little about the subject, so that your language must be clean, clear, and straightforward. This will force you to really think through what you are learning. Linguistic intelligence is more important because the more vocabulary you have, the more accurately you can express yourself. It's a good idea for you to jot down every unfamiliar word you come across and look it up as soon as you can in a dictionary. The more words you have, the better you can think. Reading to children and encouraging them to read as they grow up is one of the most helpful things that a parent can do for a child. There's a direct relationship between the quality of your vocabulary and the quality of your life. To develop your intrapersonal intelligence, you can use it to explore information by going into subjects on a personal level. The more you dig into a subject, the more interested you become in it. Whatever the subject you are learning, ask or read about the background, especially the human interest part. If the subject is art, music, or drama, ask what was in the creator's mind. What did he or she do differently from anyone else before? If the subject is history, you might visualize the characters of the people who created the political and social changes. Get your emotional brain involved. Look for the human interest in history, mathematics, textbook subjects, or learning in an industrial environment. The secret of creating interest in a subject is to look for something that has personal significance for you. Look for anything that will create that first spark of interest. Then, the genuine interest in the subject follows. It is people that make subjects interesting. The unusual makes subjects interesting. Unexpected connections make subjects interesting. Above all, you become interested in a subject when you can answer questions like, why does this matter to me? How can I use this data? What significance can I find in this for me? To explore a subject using your visual spatial intelligence, create a learning map where you can summarize all the information in the form of pictures. With a learning map, you can lay out the information in a way that makes sense to you. You can then reorganize it to show the connections between the various pieces of information. A friend of mine teaching a psychology course had his students use this method in a very interesting way. He had each student take a large manila folder and then cut out words and pictures from magazines that the student felt illustrated the way he or she really was inside. All of these clippings were then glued on the pages inside the manila folder. Then each student was asked to take additional clippings and put them on the outside of the folder that illustrated how the student felt he or she was seen by other people. The students were using their visual spatial intelligence to create pictures of their inner and outer worlds. They then exchanged folders with other students and discussed what they had concluded. It was an extremely illuminating and eye-opening exercise in interpersonal psychology. To explore a subject using your interpersonal intelligence, have a discussion about what you are learning with other people. Ask them questions. You will gain from other people's experiences and insights. This method is even better if that person will ask you hard questions and even challenge your opinions and conclusions. Informal discussions about a subject are invaluable. A really good way to open up an informal discussion is to ask people what they think about the subject you are discussing. How do they feel about it? Remember, informal learning is the very best of all. Some of the most important learning of all takes place around the family dinner table in the easy give and take of different opinions and attitudes. You can really enhance the quality of your family life by encouraging everyone to regularly discuss what each of them is doing and how each of you can learn or benefit from their knowledge. As a parent, you should ask your children about what they think of some of the ideas in this program. Let them tell you their feelings and experiences about learning. Do they get on well in a particular class? Why is that? Does the way the class is taught match the way they like to learn? Now, don't be too alarmed if your children initially react negatively to a discussion about teaching and learning. Many children are already turned off by any mention of study because they feel they cannot succeed in certain subjects. However, they are the ones who will most benefit from these ideas. To explore a subject using your bodily physical intelligence, act out or role play what you are learning. As Benjamin Franklin said, an ounce of experience is worth a ton of theory. Acting out something that you are learning allows you to turn a theory into something more memorable. Role-playing helps you to explore what you are learning by acting out a new role in a safe situation. Role-playing can also help you to understand other people through acting out their roles. It helps you to see the world from their point of view. A great role-play to accelerate your learning is to imagine that you have been sent to this course or that you are reading this material preparatory to teaching it as a subject to your co-workers and friends. This is called dual plane learning, where you simultaneously think about teaching as you are learning it. It doubles the rate at which you internalize the information. Imagine yourself standing up in front of the room teaching the key points of the material that you are currently taking in. You will be amazed at how much better you concentrate on it when you think about teaching it later. Another bodily physical way of exploration is to write it out in your own words. Since writing is a physical exercise, you shouldn't be surprised that when you write something down, you learn better. Many very successful people over time have turned out to have written thousands of pages of material over the course of their lives. To explore a subject musically, you can create poems or rhymes about the material. When you express what you want to say in a concise and rhythmic way and then fit those words to a melody, it makes the words highly significant and memorable. You really have to think hard about what you are learning to do this. This makes for far more effective learning. One very successful way to musically explore new information is to play classical music in the background and then recite the information you're learning in the same rhythm and cadence of the classical music, exactly as if you were singing along with the music in your own words. It's amazing how helpful this is in learning. By the way, modern technology allows us to see which areas of the brain are working at any one time. What we found is that the same area of the brain is engaged when someone is engaged in mathematical reasoning as when they are performing and reading music. Research from test schools, including the Face School in Montreal, indicates that when 1 hour a day of music, art, or drama is added to the timetable, grades in all the other subjects can improve by as much as 20%. Active involvement in music and the arts is a centrally important element in raising confidence, enjoyment, and actual grade standards in school. Just playing classical music in the household causes children to get much better grades in math and science. There are many ways to explore a subject using your various intelligences. Perhaps you're beginning to come up with ideas of your own to use your brain power more fully. Just for luck, here are another 7 ways to use your 7 intelligences to speed up the rate at which you internalize new information. To develop your linguistic intelligence, describe the new subject out loud. Form questions that you want answers for, and then find the answers and repeat them aloud as well. Remember, when you speak in your own words aloud, you double the impact on your memory. To develop your mathematical logical intelligence, make a flowchart or diagram that expresses what you are learning in a step-by-step manner. The more systematically and logically you organize material, the more intelligent you will become in this area. To develop your visual spatial intelligence, create a strong visual image of what you are trying to learn in your mind's eye. Create a sort of mental TV documentary. Or you can make a poster for your wall of what you have learned by cutting out clips and pictures of words and illustrations of what you want to accomplish. To develop your musical intelligence more, choose and play appropriate background music as you think about the topic. Try to choose music that represents what you are learning. In any case, always have classical music playing when you are studying by yourself. To intensify your interpersonal intelligence, teach what you are learning to someone else, or compare notes with someone else who is doing the same program. Asking them what they think is the most important point and why they think these parts are more important than others is an excellent way to learn. To develop your intrapersonal intelligence, take time to quietly reflect on the subject. Ask yourself, how does it fit in with what you already know? How does it relate to your past experiences? What effect on your life could it have if you learned it fluently? Finally, to develop more of your bodily physical intelligence, create index cards of the main ideas and sort them out in a logical order. Carry these as flashcards and look at them from time to time. You can also pin the cards on a notice board and look at them regularly. You can even move the cards around on a notice board to change their sequence and order. When you learn anything in any way, a memory track is laid down in your brain. At first it might be a fairly weak track. It's like creating a track through the jungle or a cow path across a pasture. The first time the pathway is poorly defined, but with repetition the path becomes deeper and deeper. As this mental groove becomes deeper, you think faster and more easily on that subject. It's very much like the gutter in a bowling alley. Once the ball goes into that groove, it stays in it all the way down to the end. By the same token, when you develop a deep and narrow groove in your brain by constant repetition of new information in different ways, you become smarter and smarter and you think faster and faster on that particular subject. In this session, you've been introduced to 14 proven effective ways to explore any subject in depth, 2 for each of your 7 intelligences. You can use any combination of these you choose. Typically, you might use 1 or 2 types of exploration for any given learning task. Which activity you choose will depend on your personal learning preferences and the requirements of the specific learning task. Different types of exploration will better suit different learning tasks, but exploration is the vital stage to effective learning. That's why the idea of a learning toolkit is so important. The more tools you have, the more likely it is that you will choose the right tool for the job. When you use your full range of intelligences to explore new information, you create a fully balanced learning experience. It brings information to life. It turns new information from surface knowledge to deep understanding. It enables you to relate what is new to what you already know. And the more you have the determination to move out of your comfort zone and explore your additional intelligences, the smarter and quicker you will become, the better decisions you will make, and the more rapidly you will move ahead in your field.